got the Nemo Tensor here. The reason I'm using this Nemo Tensor is because my Axle AirPad from Big Agnes popped like 5 times. And I don't really have anything extraordinary to say about the Nemo Tensor, except for that I own it. And that for some weird reason I bought this instead of the Thermarest. And I actually tried like every single AirPad out there except for the Thermarest. And I'm getting ready to try the Thermarest, the Neo Air X Lite. And I'm kind of excited about it. They've got this Uber Light that came out. Of course it's kind of expensive. It's like $200. But I can tell you that this Nemo Tensor is kind of like the other guy. It's kind of like the other Thermarest. It's designed very similar, and it's got foil in the middle. It's got like a kind of like a layer of foil down the center of the AirPad that's supposed to act like insulation. And basically I can tell you that it doesn't work. It's basically achieves nothing. It causes the AirPad to be heavier. The pack size is bigger, and the AirPad is heavier than it needs to be. The internal structure of the AirPad kind of doesn't do anything. That's what I found. And so I ended up buying other AirPads. I ended up buying the Big Agnes Axle AirPad. The Big Agnes Axle AirPad worked great for me for a couple of nights, and then suddenly it started popping. And once it started to pop, it actually popped every single time I used it. I used it last weekend and it popped, and I've completely given up on the Axle. I'm sending it back. I'm pretty sure that none of those holes in the AirPad are covered under warranty. So I don't have a lot of faith that I'm going to hear anything positive back from Big Agnes. But in the meantime, until that Uber Light from Thermarest comes out, I'm going to use my Nemo Tensor just because I own it. I can tell you it's heavier, and it achieves less with more weight than the other guys. But it hasn't popped. There's no holes in this one. So I'm going to use it tonight and see how it goes. I'm doing a review of this Nemo Tensor just because I have it. Now, one thing I do want to say about this AirPad is that I did read a review from somebody who said that they love this Nemo Tensor better than any other AirPad, and that they don't use anything else and they totally love it. And I would say that the Nemo, it kind of sleeps cold. So if global warming is kind of a serious problem where you're at, if it's unusually hot out and you sleep kind of hot and you're worried about being hot at night and you want to sleep kind of cold, you're looking for an AirPad that's kind of cold on the cold side, Nemo's good. And as far as I know, it's also kind of durable. This AirPad has not gotten any holes in it. It kind of reminds me of XPad. I used the XPad, the UL XPad about 10 years ago, which is discontinued, but it's very similar to the SynMat. XPad has got a SynMat, and the big difference between the XPad SynMat and the Thermarest Neo Air X Lite is that you can take a twig that's on fire and put it on the Thermarest Neo Air X Lite, and that flame won't pop the AirPad. It's got some crazy durability to it where it won't even pop if you light it on fire or something. And the XPad is the opposite. If a cigarette ember lands on the XPad, it'll pop. And Nemo kind of reminds me of XPad. I really did like XPad a lot. That UL XPad that I had, it would get little tiny pinholes in it, and all I had to do was put some fabric glue on my finger and rub the fabric glue on the XPad, and it would patch it up. I should have kept it. I actually just got rid of it just because I thought it was a lost cause, and I thought that I could replace it really easily. And I actually never owned another AirPad that was good, that was as good as that UL XPad. The UL XPad was dogged by the internet 10 years ago. Being an internet troll was a big deal, and there were a bunch of trolls on the internet who said that XPad sucked and it was a total fail. That was actually the best AirPad I ever had. That AirPad was awesome. And the Nemo's really similar to XPad. The weird thing is, there's a lot of weird things about it. That, AirPads use a different kind of fabric now than they used to. They basically use polyester. And the ultra lightweight polyester that they're using nowadays, it gets massive holes in it. Like the holes are the size of a nickel. And when you patch those holes, the patches don't necessarily hold true because it is really difficult to glue plastic. Glue needs to become bone dry before it really holds true. and plastic prevents the glue from drying. So like, when you put a goldfish into a plastic bag with water, that plastic bag is preventing that water from drying so the goldfish can live in the plastic bag. Your plastic air pad is the same way. When you put a patch on that plastic air pad, that plastic air pad is preventing that glue from drying out. That plastic air pad doesn't allow air to get into that glue and get that glue to harden. So even though you patch the holes on your air pads nowadays, there's no guarantee that that glue on those patches is actually gonna get dry. And so those patches might not hold true. So like last week I was camping in the rain, and I think that just the wet ground, it got into my patches, and the patches kind of, the stickiness, it kind of diluted the stickiness on the patches because they weren't really dry, and air started to leak out through those patches. And so my patches kind of failed. Even though I had like 4 or 5 patches on the bottom of the axial air pad, and it was working for a while, eventually just moisture got into those patches and the patches failed because they weren't really dry the way that they need to be. The polyester actually prevents those patches from drying, and it's not really holding the air in. The holes are just way too big. So, Nemo, it's got 2 really positive aspects to it. It's durable, it doesn't get holes in it as easy as the other guys, and it's kind of cold. So if you're sleeping somewhere that's super hot, you might want to use Nemo. I'm not sleeping somewhere super hot. Where I live in Northern California, it kind of gets cold. And so the Nemo's not perfect for me. It's kind of cold here. I kind of sleep in cold conditions, so this isn't really great for me, but it might be good for somebody else. This was a really cold night. I woke up about 4:30, went to the bathroom, and when I came back, I never went back to sleep. It was cold. Not really sure if the Nemo was cold. I felt cold like all over. I had cold spots on my sleeping bag, front, back, top to bottom. But the Nemo, it didn't really provide a lot of warmth. I just felt cold. I'm not really sure what exactly about my sleep system was so cold last night, and I'm not sure what the temperature was last night, but I was cold. It's cool that the Nemo didn't pop, though. The Nemo held air. My axial air pad popped in this exact same camp spot, and the Nemo handled it pretty well. I'm just not sure why I was so cold last night. So I just tried to warm up in my sleep system. I put on all my clothes, and I just got inside of my sleeping bag and waited until I could get warm. I was cold for about 10 minutes, and then maybe after like 20 minutes I did warm up. So I would say that I did feel the foil insulation inside of the Nemo kind of warm up, especially right underneath the chest. At first, I felt cold emanating up from the Nemo from my legs all the way up to my shoulders, and it kind of felt like an ice pack on my back. But if I just laid still and allowed those baffles to warm up from my body heat with my jacket on and everything, after about another 10-15 minutes, So about 20-25 minutes, yeah, the air pad warmed up. So I guess it does work. You just have to lay really still, you know, because that foil is reflecting your body heat, and in order to do that, the body heat needs to stay constant, because your body doesn't produce a lot of heat. It's not like a space heater. It only produces a little bit of heat. So that heat has to be continuous, and you have to lay kind of in the same spot. I kind of laid on my back and didn't move for about 30 minutes, and eventually I got warm. I mean, my toes are still kind of cold right now. I got my socks on, and you know, I eventually was able to warm up to just like room temperature after like 30 minutes, and the sun is already out. So yeah, I'm pretty cold. Overall, I'm really cold. I don't even want to walk to town. I'm gonna go get breakfast in town, but it's gonna take me like an hour to get there, and I don't want to get out of bed at all. I don't want to do anything right now. I'm just cold. But yeah, I think that kind of wraps it up.